The envelope smelled like stale coffee and bureaucratic indifference. I sat in the front seat of my Honda Civic, the engine idling just to keep the heater running against the biting November chill. The county sheriff's station loomed gray and blocky through my windshield, a fortress of concrete that had held the last pieces of my brother hostage for 3 years. Caleb. Just saying his name in my head made my chest tighten. It had been 1,095 days since his car was found at the bottom of a ravine off Highway 18. The official report said, driver fatigue. They said he fell asleep at the wheel, drifted across the double yellow, and punched through the guardrail. But there was no body. They found his wallet. They found his shoes, still laced, sitting on the driver's side floor mat, which the sheriff could explain. And they found his dashcam for 3 years. I fought them for it. Ongoing investigation, they said. Then, corrupted evidence. Then, simply lost in processing. It took a lawyer I couldn't afford and a threat to go to the state press to finally get this manila envelope released to me. I looked down at it. It was light. Just a few sheets of paper, the inventory list, and a small, clear plastic bag stapled to the inside. Inside the bag was a micros card. It looked innocuous. A tiny square of black plastic, no bigger than a fingernail. It seemed impossible that the end of my brother's life could fit on something so small. My hands were shaking as I ripped the bag open. I had brought my laptop with me. I couldn't wait until I got home. I needed to know now. I needed to see the last thing Caleb saw before the world swallowed him whole. I slotted the card into the adapter and pushed it into the side of my laptop. The screen flickered. A folder icon popped up. DSIM. My heart hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I opened the folder. There were dozens of files. Most were mundane. His commute to work. Trips to the grocery store. The boring, repetitive loops of a life lived on the road. But the last 5 files, they were different. They were dated the 12th of November, 2021. The night he vanished. The timestamps were erratic. 23:14 p.m., 23:45 p.m. 0, M2:15 a.m. And wait, the last file didn't have a standard timestamp. The metadata was garbled, displaying a string of symbols instead of numbers. I took a deep breath, the cold air stinging my lungs. I clicked on the first file, 23:14 p.m. The video player opened. A grainy, wide angle. View of Highway 18 filled the screen. It was pitch black, outside the reach of the headlights. The high beams cut a cone of illumination through the thick, swirling mist that this part of the state was famous for. The wipers were slapping back and forth. Thwack, hiss, thwack, hiss. A hypnotic metronome. Inside the car, the dash glowed a soft amber. I could hear Caleb humming. He was listening to that old classic rock station he loved, singing along to Hotel California, slightly off. Key, check out anytime you like, he sang, tapping the steering wheel. But you can never leave. I smiled, tears stinging my eyes. It was him. He sounded so normal, so alive. He reached for a Red Bull in the cup holder, bringing it into the frame. All right, he muttered to himself, his voice clear on the audio. Just another hour to the cabin, easy peasy. The car passed a green reflective sign on the side of the road. Mile marker 88. I watched as he drove. The road was straight here, flanked by towering pines that leaned over the asphalt like jagged teeth. It was boring footage, just driving. I fast-forwarded a bit. 5 minutes. 10 minutes, Caleb was still driving. The scenery hadn't changed. The trees looked identical. Then, the headlights caught another green sign. Mile marker 88, I frowned. I scrubbed the video back. Had I missed a loop? Number the timestamp in the corner was continuous. 23:24 p.m. Weird, Caleb muttered on the video. He noticed it too. He glanced at the GPS mounted on his dash. Map says I am moving, he said, tapping the screen. He kept driving. The fog seemed to be getting thicker, swirling in shapes that looked almost solid in the harsh light of the high beams. 10 minutes later, 23:34 p.m., another sign. Mile marker 88. This time, Caleb didn't hum. He turned the radio down. The silence in the car was sudden and heavy. Okay, he whispered. That is funny. Very funny. He slowed the car down. The speedometer dropped from 65 to 40. He leaned forward, squinting through the windshield. Is the road looping? He asked himself. Did I miss a turn? He grabbed his phone. I watched him dial. On the screen, I saw the name he was calling. Rowan, my phone. I remembered that night. I was at a party. The music was loud. I had missed a call around 11:30. I assumed it was a butt. Dial. I never called him back on the video. Caleb held the phone to his ear. Come on, pick up. Ro, this is weird. He pulled the phone away. No signal, seriously. Suddenly, the audio on the dashcam distorted. A high-pitched whine, like feedback from a microphone, pierced the speakers. I flinched, turning the volume down on my laptop. On screen, Caleb clapped his hands over his ears. The car swerved, crossing the double yellow line. What the hell is that? He yelled. The sound stopped as abruptly as it began, but it was replaced by something else. A low rhythmic thrumming. Thump, 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 thump. It sounded like a heartbeat, a massive, slow heartbeat, and it wasn't T coming from the car. The camera lens was vibrating with every beat. The image blurred and refocused in time with the sound. Caleb looked at the rearview mirror. His face, illuminated by the dashboard lights, went pale. No, he whispered. No way. I leaned closer to the screen, in the rearview mirror, barely visible through the grime of the back window. Two lights had appeared in the darkness behind him. Red, blue, red, blue. A police car. I let out a breath I didn't, to know I was holding. A cop. Thank God. He could ask for help. He could ask why the mile markers weren't T-changing. But then I looked closer. The lights weren't T-flashing. They were pulsing. They dimmed and brightened like a breathing lung. And the colors. They were wrong. The red was too deep, like drying blood. The blue was sickly, ultraviolet. Caleb saw it too. He didn't pull over immediately. He watched the mirror, terrified. That is not a cruiser, he whispered. The file ended abruptly. I sat in the freezing car, the silence of the sheriff, S parking lot pressing in on me. My heart was racing. I moved the cursor to the next file, 0am. I clicked play. The video opened with a burst of static, a digital scream that tore through my laptop speakers before settling into a low, menacing hum. Caleb had pulled over. The car was idling on the shoulder of Highway 18. The gravel crunched audibly under the tires as the vehicle rocked slightly in the wind. Outside, the fog had swallowed the world. The headlights only penetrated a few feet before hitting a wall of gray vapor, behind him, in the rearview mirror. The red and blue lights were closer now. They were blindingly bright, flaring out the camera, sensor, creating starburst artifacts on the screen. Caleb was breathing hard, short, shallow gasps. He kept glancing between the side mirror and the rear view. Officer, he muttered, rolling the window down just a crack. Is that you? There was no siren. No sound of a radio squawking dispatch codes. No sound of a heavy car door slamming shut. Just the wet, slapping sound of footsteps on wet pavement. But the rhythm was wrong. Slap, drag, slap, drag, slap. Drag, it sounded like someone walking on a broken leg. Caleb leaned closer to the window. Hey, I think I am lost. The signs. They keep repeating. The figure stepped into the edge of the dashcam, rear view. My stomach dropped. It looked like a police officer. It wore the uniform, the dark tan shirt, the badge catching the light, the wide-brimmed hat. But the uniform fit poorly. It hung loose in some places and looked stretched to the tearing point in others. The officer stopped 10 feet from the car. It didn't have a flashlight. It didn't have a gun on its hip. It just stood there swaying, like a tree in a storm, even though there was no wind. License, a voice said. It didn't come from the officer's mouth. It sounded like it was coming from everywhere at once, filtering through the car. S radio speakers, buzzing through the frame of the vehicle itself. And the voice. It was a recording. It was flat, grainy, and skipped like a scratched CD. Lee, license, and Regis. Tration, please. Caleb froze. Are you okay? The figure took another step, and that's when I saw the legs. in the wash of the taillights. The officer-ass trousers were hitched up slightly. Below the hem, where there should have been boots and socks, there was something else. It looked like chitin. Black, glossy segments that ended in a sharp point. Like the leg of a crab, but massive. Caleb saw it too. He let out a strangled yelp and scrambled for the window switch. "Whoa, okay, he yelled, jamming the button. The glass rose agonizingly slowly. The officer reacted instantly. The swaying stopped. The figure, S head snapped up. Under the brim of the hat, there was no face, no eyes, no nose, no mouth. Just a smooth, pale surface of wet flesh. And then, it split open. A vertical slit tore down the center of the face, revealing rows of translucent, needle-like teeth that spiraled down into a throat that glowed with a faint, bioluminescent blue light. The siren started. But it wasn't a siren. The creature opened its maw and screamed. It was a perfect mimicry of a police siren. Wah, ooh, wah, ooh. But underneath the mechanical wail, there was a wet, organic gurgling. Caleb slammed the car into drive. He floored it. The tires spun on the gravel, screeching as they found traction on the asphalt. The car fishtailed violently, then shot forward back onto the highway. In the rearview mirror, the officer didn't T-run. It dropped to all fours. Its limbs elongated, snapping and cracking as they reshaped themselves. The uniform tore apart, revealing a sleek, pale body underneath. It scuttled sideways like a spider, moving impossibly fast, keeping pace with the accelerating car. "Oh God, oh God, oh God!" Caleb was screaming now. He grabbed his phone again, fumbling with it, dropping it into the passenger footwell. He didn't. T stopped to pick it up. He gripped the steering wheel with white knuckles, his eyes locked on the road ahead. The speedometer climbed, 60, 70, 80. The fog rushed past like water. Then a sign flashed by on the right. Mile marker 88. Caleb slammed his hand on the dashboard. "No, not again. Where is the exit? Where is the damn exit?" The radio, which had been silent, suddenly turned itself on. "Check out any time you like, Caleb," his own voice sang from the speakers. It was the recording from earlier in the night, but you can never leave. "Shut up," Caleb yelled, hitting the power button. The radio didn't turn off. It got louder. "Can never leave. Never leave," the voice distorted, deepening into a demonic, guttural roar that shook the plastic of the dashboard. Outside, the world was changing. The trees lining the road were no longer pine trees. As the car sped past, their branches seemed to droop and lengthen. They lashed out at the car, whipping against the side windows with cracks that sounded like gunshots. They looked like arms. Long, wooden arms trying to grab the door handles. Caleb swerved to avoid a branch that hung low over the road. The car drifted into the left lane. "Come on, Ro, pick up," he screamed at the phone on the floor. But the phone was dead. I knew it was. In the rearview mirror, the lights were back. The red and blue pulse. The creature was catching up. And then, the road betrayed him. Ahead, the headlights illuminated a patch of black asphalt. It looked like a puddle of oil. But as the car approached, the puddle expanded. It grew wider, stretching across both lanes. It wasn't ice. It was a hole. A void in the texture of the road. Caleb slammed on the brakes. The tires locked. The car skidded. It hit the black patch and didn't slide. It stuck. The momentum threw the rear of the car sideways. The vehicle spun, a chaotic blur of motion. The world outside the windows became a carousel of fog and monster. Trees. The guardrail rushed into view. Caleb threw his hands up to protect his face. "Rowan," he screamed, crunch. The sound of metal tearing was deafening. The car punched through the steel rail like it was made of tin foil. The horizon tilted. The hood of the car dipped down. They were airborne. The camera tumbled. The view spun wildly. Darkness, trees, sky, darkness again. The sound of glass shattering. The sickening crunch of the frame buckling. And then, a final, bone, jarring impact. The video feed cut to black, but the audio kept rolling. 0:08 a.m. I stared at the black screen, my own reflection staring back at me. terrified. I wanted to close the laptop. I wanted to throw the SD card into the river and forget I ever saw this. But I couldn't I could hear him, a groan, wet and pained. My leg. Oh God, my leg. Caleb was alive. He was trapped in the wreckage at the bottom of the ravine. "Hello?" he whispered. "Is anyone there?" Silence. Just the ticking of the cooling engine and the drip of fluids leaking onto the forest floor. Then, from the top of the ravine, a sound drifted down. Slap, drag, slap, drag, and the wail of a siren, soft and low, like a lullaby. Wail-oo, wail-oo. "No," Caleb whimpered. The sound of skittering rocks. Something was coming down the slope. "Driver," the voice called out from the dark. It wasn't the radio voice anymore. It sounded exactly like Caleb. "Driver, are you injured? I can help you." "Stay away," Caleb screamed, his voice breaking. "Stay the hell away from me." "I have a first aid kit," the Caleb voice said, getting closer. "I have morphine. I have warm blankets. You are not real." "I am as real as you are, Caleb," the voice said. "Open the door. The lock is jammed. Let me pry it open." There was a sound of metal screeching, the door frame bending. "Let me in," the voice hissed, losing the mimicry, dropping into a chittering insectile buzz. "It is cold out here, and I need a new suit, Rowan," Caleb screamed. And then, a sound I will never forget. The sound of a skull crunching, like stepping on a dry autumn leaf. The screaming stopped instantly. The audio file hissed with static for another 10 seconds. Then a new voice spoke. It was close to the microphone. Right up against the Dashcam record. It whispered. The file ended. 2 a.m. the next file opened with a timestamp that made my blood run cold. 2 hours after the crash. 2 hours after the screaming stopped. The video feed was black. The lens must have been buried in the dirt or pressed against the crumpled dashboard. But the audio was crystal clear, terrifyingly so. At first, there was only the sound of the forest, the wind rustling through the dead leaves, the dripping of radiator fluid hissing on the hot engine block. But then came the other sounds. Wet sounds. Squish. Tear. Snap. It sounded like a butcher breaking down a side of beef. I had to pause the video. I put my head between my knees, fighting the urge to vomit. That was my brother. That was Caleb. And something was dismantling him. I forced myself to hit play again. I owed him that. I had to know. "Tight fit?" a voice muttered. It was Caleb. S voice, I froze. Had he survived? Was he talking to himself? "Too tight in the shoulders," the voice continued. "Need to adjust," crack. A loud snap. Like a branch breaking, but wetter. Then a sigh of relief. Better, much better. My stomach turned. It wasn't Caleb. It was a thing. It was wearing him. It was breaking his bones to fit inside his skin, like a hermit crab squeezing into a new shell. There was a rustling sound, then the noise of the car door being wrenched open further, the groan of metal on metal. "Keys, the Caleb," voice whispered. "Where are the keys?" The sound of rummaging, the glove box opening and closing, the clatter of plastic. Then, a sudden stillness. "Camera," the voice said. The audio shifted. Something was touching the dashcam. There was a fumble, a scrape of claws against plastic, and then light. The video feed flickered back to life. The camera had been pulled free from its mount. It was being held up, angling wildly. The view swung around. The twisted wreckage of the steering column, the shattered windshield, the dark canopy of trees above. Then, the camera turned around. It was aimed at the holder, Sace. I screamed. I couldn't. Help it. I clapped my hand over my mouth, tears streaming down my face. It was Caleb, or at least it looked like him. It was his face, his brown hair, matted with blood and dirt, his jawline, his nose. But the eyes were wrong. They weren't just dead. They were painted on. The creature hadn't just worn his skin. It had mimicked his features perfectly, but it didn't understand the anatomy. The eyes were flat, 2 dimensional circles of blue pigment on a canvas of pale flesh. They didn't blink. They didn't move. And the mouth hung open in a slack, permanent grin. The lips didn't move when it spoke. The sound came from the throat, vibrating the skin of the neck. Test, the creature said. Testing 1, 2. It was calibrating. It was learning how to use the vocal cords. It tilted its head, Caleb's head, to the side at an impossible angle. The neck bent like a rubber hose with no resistance from the spine. Rowan, it said. It tested the name. Tasted it, Rowan brother. Pick up the phone, Rowan. It giggled, a high tittering sound that sounded like a dolphin's click. Then the creature lifted its hand into the frame. It wasn't Caleb's hand. It was a mangle of flesh and bone. The fingers were broken, twisted backwards. But the creature didn't seem to notice or care. It used the broken fingers to manipulate the buttons on the back of the camera. Memory full, it read from the screen. Delete. Number keep. Evidence. It smiled wider. The skin of the cheeks tore slightly at the corners of the mouth. Bait, it whispered. The camera view swung away from the face. The creature was climbing out of the ravine. The movement was jerky, unnatural. It moved like a puppet being pulled by strings that were too tight. I watched through the shaky lens as it crested the hill and stepped back onto the asphalt of Highway 18. The fog had lifted slightly. The road was empty. Silent. The creature stood in the middle of the road, holding the camera up like a tourist, filming a vacation. It panned slowly left and right. Mile marker 88, it narrated, zooming in on the green sign. Then headlights appeared in the distance. A truck. A semi, by the sound of the engine braking. The creature didn't run. It didn't hide. It stood in the center of the lane and started to wave. Help. It screamed. Please help me. My car crashed. The voice was perfect. It was desperate, terrified, human. It was Caleb begging for his life. The truck slowed down. The air brakes hissed. The massive rig came to a halt 20 feet away. The driver's door opened. A heavy-set man jumped down, flashlight in hand. Son, are you okay? The trucker called out. The creature lowered the camera to its side, but the lens was still capturing the scene. I am hurt, the creature sobbed. My legs. I can feel my legs. Stay there, I am coming, the trucker yelled, running forward. I watched helplessly. Don't I whispered at the screen. Don't go near him. The trucker reached the creature. He reached out to support Caleb, his shoulder. Jesus, son, you are freezing, the trucker said. Let's get you into the cab. We all call for. He stopped. He shone his flashlight into Caleb's face. He saw the painted eyes. What the trucker tried to pull away, but the creature was faster. The camera fell to the asphalt. It landed lens. Up, I saw the creature lunging. Its jaw unhinged the skin of Caleb, his face splitting down the middle like a ripe fruit. The trucker screamed, a short, wet sound. Then silence. The creature picked up the camera again. It looked into the lens one last time. New ride, it whispered. The file ended. 2:15 a.m. The next file was short. Only 30 seconds. But it was enough to make me question my own sanity. The view was from inside the semi-truck cab. The dashcam had been mounted on the dashboard of the truck now, pointed out the windshield. The engine was roaring, the gears grinding as the truck accelerated. The creature, wearing Caleb's skin, was driving. Its hands, those broken, twisted hands, were gripping the massive steering wheel. It was struggling to reach the pedals. I could hear its legs snapping and reforming, lengthening to reach the brake and gas. West, it muttered. Go west. The truck barreled down Highway 18. The fog had returned, thicker than before. It pressed against the glass like a living thing, swirling in patterns that looked like faces screaming in agony. But it was the road itself that drew my eye. Through the high vantage point of the truck's windshield, I could see the asphalt clearly. It wasn't static. It was undulating. The yellow lines in the center of the road were writhing. They looked like glowing worms, squirming across the black surface. The asphalt itself seemed to be breathing. rising and falling in slow, rhythmic heaves, and the headlights caught the forest on either side. The trees were leaning in. They formed a tunnel, their branches interlocked above the road like fingers laced together. But they weren't tea wood, they were flesh. The bark was grayish skin, covered in sores and boils. The leaves were patches of hair, and on the trunks, where the knots of the wood should be, there were eyes. Hundreds of them, giant, blinking eyes that watched the truck pass. Watchers, the creature hissed, noticing the eyes. Observers. It reached for the truck. SCB radio. Breaker 19, it said into the mic, its voice a perfect imitation of the trucker it had just killed. This is Big Rig 54. Road is clear. No bears. Just meat. Static crackled back. A voice responded, but it wasn't T-human. It was a series of clicks and whistles, like dolphins communicating underwater. The creature seemed to understand. It nodded. Roger that. Delivering the payload. It glanced at the dashcam. It knew it was recording. It smiled at Slack. Painted. I smile. Rowan is watching, it said. My blood turned to ice, it knew. It knew I would find this. It knew I was watching right now. 3 years in the future. Come find us, brother, it whispered. Highway 18 never ends. It just goes deeper. The truck hit a bump. The camera jolted. Through the windshield, I saw something in the distance. A structure. It looked like a toll booth, but it was made of bone. Massive ribs arched over the highway, forming a gateway. The toll booth itself was a skull the size of a house. Its mouth opened to let the cars pass through. The creature laughed. It slammed its foot on the gas. The truck sped toward the skull, the camera glitching, the image tearing. And then, just before the truck entered the mouth of the skull, the video cut out. Signal lost. I sat back in my car, trembling. My laptop felt hot on my lap. The heater in my car was blasting, but I was shivering uncontrollably. Payload. It said it was delivering a payload. What was in the back of that truck? And where did it go? There was one file left on the SD card, the one with a garbled timestamp. Am I didn't? Do you want to click it? Every instinct in my body screamed at me to destroy the card, to smash the laptop to run. But I couldn't. It was Caleb, or what was left of him. I hovered the mouse over the file. I clicked. Timestamp. Corrupted. The video player opened, but the screen remained completely black. There was no static, no grain, just a deep, absolute void of a camera lens that had been blinded or buried. But the audio was alive. It started with a sound that I can only describe as wet breathing. Heavy labored inhalations that rattled with fluid. It sounded close. Intimate, like someone was holding the microphone directly against their chest. Is it on? A voice whispered. It was Caleb. Not the creature mimicking him. My heart leaped into my throat. The voice was weak, trembling with pain, but it had the cadence, the soul that the creature lacked. If anyone finds this, he wheezed, breaking off into a coughing fit that sounded painful. My name is Caleb Vance, I crashed. I don't too know where I am. The sound of fabric rustling. He was shifting his weight. It is dark, so dark. I can't see anything. I think I am blind. Or maybe there is just no light here. A pause. I can hear them, he whispered, his voice dropping to a terrified whimper. Outside, in the trees. They were talking to each other. In the background of the audio, faint and distant, I heard it, the clicking, the whistles. The biological radio chatter I had heard on the truck. SCB. They sound like insects, Caleb said. Big ones. Then a new sound. A metallic scraping, screech. The car, Caleb breathed. Something is opening the trunk. Silence. Then a heavy thud. Hey, Caleb yelled, his voice cracking. Who is there? I have a tire iron. A low, chittering laughter echoed from outside the car. Tire iron, a voice mocked. It wasn't Steve the creature from before. This voice was different. It sounded metallic. Buzzing, like a voice synthesizer from the 80s, but organic, metal weak. What do you want? Caleb cried parts. The voice buzzed. Spare parts. The sound of the car door being ripped off its hinges, not opened, ripped. The metal groaned and snapped like a twig. Caleb screamed, "Get back! Get back!" The sounds of a struggle, thrashing, kicking, the dull thud of flesh hitting metal. And then, Caleb. His voice changed. It went from terror to confusion, Mom, he asked. I froze. Our mother had died 10 years ago. Mom, is that you? But you are dead. Come here, baby. A woman. His voice cooed. It sounded exactly like her. It was the voice that used to sing us to sleep. Let me look at you. You are hurt, Mom. Caleb sounded like a child. It hurts, my legs hurt. I know, sweetie, I know. Come out of the car. Let me fix you. But, don't you trust me? Yes, I trust you. The sound of movement. Caleb was crawling out of the wreckage. That is a good boy, the mother voice said. Just a little further into the light. What light? Caleb asked. I don't see any light. The light in the throat, the voice said. And suddenly the tone shifted. The warmth vanished, replaced by a cold, hungry rasp. The light of the hive. No, Caleb screamed. You are not her, you are not. It sounded like a boot stepping into deep mud, or a giant tongue lashing out. Caleb's scream was cut short. It turned into a gurgle, a choking, drowning sound. Recycling, the buzzing voice said. Biomass accepted. Then came the sounds of feeding, wet tearing, snapping, chewing. I slammed the mute button. I could listen. I could listen to my brother being eaten by things that pretended to be our mother. I sat there, shaking, tears streaming down my face. I looked at the progress bar on the video player. There were still 2 minutes left. Why, if he was dead, who was recording? I unmuted the audio. The feeding sounds had stopped. There was silence for a long time. Just the ambient hum of the strange insectile forest. Then footsteps, heavy clanking. Someone picked up the camera. Unit 734, a voice said. It was deep authoritative. Human report. A second voice replied over a radio. Subject terminated. Biomass harvested by local fauna. Vehicle recovered. And the recording device intact. Destroy it. A pause. No, the deep voice said. Leave it. Let the brother find it. My blood ran cold. Protocol 88, the voice continued. The trap requires bait. Emotional resonance is high. The brother will come looking. Understood. Leaving device in evidence recovery zone. The sound of the camera being placed down. He is listening right now, the voice said. It sounded like he was leaning right into the microphone. Arn to you, Rowan. I slammed the laptop shut. I threw it onto the passenger seat. I fumbled for my keys, jamming them into the ignition. The engine roared to life. I threw the car into reverse, backing out of the parking spot so fast I nearly hit a patrol car. I had to get out of there. I had to go home. I had to go home. I slammed on the brakes. In my rearview mirror, flashing lights. Red, blue, red. Blue, a police car had pulled up behind me, blocking the exit of the parking lot. But the siren, it wasn't a siren. It was a scream, wah, ooh, wah, ooh, wah. I looked at the car. It was an old Crown Vic, rusted and battered. The windows were tinted black, and on the roof, the light bar wasn't made of plastic and bulbs. It was a row of glowing, pulsing organs. Hearts, beating in time with the siren. The driver's door of the patrol car opened. A leg stepped out. A black, chitinous leg. And then my phone rang. It was sitting on the passenger seat, next to the laptop. I looked at the screen, incoming call. Caleb. I didn't answer it. I floored it. I drove over the curb, smashing through the landscaping, bouncing onto the main road. I didn't look back. I drove through red lights. I drove until the city limits were a blur in my rear view. But as I merged onto the interstate, heading away from Highway 18, I saw a sign on the side of the road. Green reflective paint, mile marker 88. I looked at my GPS. I was 50 miles away from Highway 18. Another sign, mile marker 88. And then the radio turned on. "Check out anytime you like, Caleb," his voice sang. I looked in the mirror. The Crown Vic was right behind me, and behind it the road was gone, replaced by a black void. I am writing this on my phone now. Voice to text. I am still driving. I can T-stop. If I slow down, they catch me. If I stop, the road eats me. I just passed mile marker 88 for the 100th time. I don't think I am on the interstate anymore. I think I am in the throat. If you see a mile marker that repeats, don't pull over. Don't check your GPS. And whatever you do, don't answer the phone. Because Highway 18 isn't a road. It is a digestive tract, and it is always hungry. If you made it this far, hit that subscribe button before the signal dies. And tell me in the comments, have you ever been driving at night and realized you don't recognize the road anymore? Stay on the pavement and keep driving.